everybody, my name is Arya Barker. I'm a 10th grader at Milpitas High School, and today I'm going to be talking about family support for struggling teens. Okay, I'm going to start out by recognizing that in today's world, being a teen is very hard. We face constant social, emotional, and academic pressures. Added to that, social media and judgment make it so that it's not a very big surprise that so many teens struggle with their mental health. And you know what the worst part is? We actually want help. We need it. But the real fear is about not being accepted. During these moments, we really need your unquestioned support. Support without judgment. Support without comparison. And support that starts with listening. We might be wrong. I admit that. And we might also need to be redirected. But in those moments, being heard matters. To know that our feelings are valid, to know that we are seen is important. People process things differently, and it's important to respect that because that's where the gap is. That's where emotions are often overlooked. So I ask for patience, even when we test you, and understanding and respect, tailored not only to your terms, but ours too. Society still paints mental health as some sort of taboo, but simply with family support, we can take a small step towards a more progressive and modern society and mindset. Because the truth is that with your support, our problems won't just disappear, but knowing that we're not alone, that can change everything. Life will always give problems, hurdles, and something will always try to take us down. There's no surprise for that. I think we can all attest to it. But the fact is that it gets so overwhelming sometimes, and it's hard to face that alone. But knowing that your family is your safe space, that you can express yourself to them freely, that can be invaluable for someone struggling. Thank you.
All right, for our next speaker is Anwika.
Hello everyone, my name is Amika Nkota and I'm a sophomore at Irvington High School. Today I want to talk about something that's really important to me as well as all of us, mental health, specifically how seeking help and support is so important and why we need to break the stigma around it. Growing up, many of us are told to focus on school, to get good grades, and to make our families proud. But in many families, especially South Asian households, mental health is often treated like it's not a priority. And struggling with stress, anxiety, or even just feeling overwhelmed can be brushed off with, you'll be fine, or just work harder. Because of that, a lot of students end up keeping everything inside. I've been there myself. Especially in the past 2 years at Irvington High School, there have been nights where I kept a school-related problem completely to myself, and I wouldn't tell anyone about it. And I remember my mom would always ask me, like, tell me what's going on? And it was just really hard, especially with struggling with stress. And I remember lying in bed, unable to sleep, with tears streaming down my face. And this is where I felt like the stress would never end. And I felt so alone, like no one would understand, that even with my friends, it felt like everyone else has it all together. Watching people, especially at Irvington, in this society, or like this little school environment where everyone's like straight A's, 4.0 GPA. So it's very hard to like really gather everyone together. And so we also end up pretending as well. So, but here's the thing I noticed, especially after my experience, even though it's only been like 2 years of high school, I gathered enough experience and an understanding that you don't have to face this alone, and that seeking help, whether it's talking to a trusted friend, a school counselor, or a mental health professional, is not a weakness. It's one of the bravest things you can do for yourself, and that support exists, and asking for it doesn't mean that you're failing or you're struggling, and it means that you're taking care of yourself. And this is where breaking the stigma comes in. And I feel like seeking help, whether it's talking to a trusted friend, as I mentioned, it's just more easier. Like when we normalize conversations about mental health, it becomes easier for everyone. And I feel like just families, schools, and communities need to understand and prioritize mental health as well. But I feel like struggling shouldn't make anyone feel ashamed or like left back. And I feel like if we all start talking more about it and being more open, I feel like I feel like we can create a space where students don't need to suffer in silence. And I feel like we're asking for help. It's just seen as brave and not weak. So overall, I just want to say that if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or even alone, remember this. Reaching out matters, support is there, talking matters, and by speaking up, you're not only helping yourself, you're helping others that are also feeling like they're alone as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Enrica, for sharing. Next up, we have Dhruv.
Hey everyone, I'm Dhruv. I'm a junior at Bellarmine College Prep, and today I just want to take 3 minutes to speak about mental health, but specifically in the South Asian community. And I think the biggest thing we need to remember is, as a community, South Asians, we're a very respect-oriented people. We've grown up regulating every aspect of our lives to prevent judgment, to prevent tarnishes to our reputation. And I mean, you heard it in the earlier videos. Every time someone brings up pressure, every time someone brings out vulnerability, all we're met with is log kya sochenge? What will people think? Now, I'm sure you've all heard the saying, our mind is like a temple. But what no one ever brings up is that part of the reason why that saying is so important is because for a temple to stand, what it needs is support, not pressure that pushes it closer to coming crashing down. For once, we need to come together as a society and support our people's minds rather than pressurize them and push them closer to coming down. So today, let's take some steps towards breaking that stigma. But I just want to quantify how big stigma is right now. Studies from researchers at Harvard and UT Austin actually tell us that stigma is 178% higher amongst the Desi community. Just understand that number, 178%. All of those moments of reputation, all of those moments of what we look like add up and they become this colossal pressure. And stigma might seem untangible, right? But in practice, researchers from Berkeley tell us that it makes us 17% less likely to get help when we're suffering with depression, when we're suffering with diseases. And 17% is a big number. For millions and millions of Desi people, that means tens of thousands of people who are suffering in silence, who are in denial of a disease that's only going to hurt them if they don't get help. So what steps can we take to solve this issue? What steps can we take to help these people out? The first is, as a society, we need to be active participants in preventing bad things from happening. We can't just stay silent when these people are excluded, when they're not provided with help. We need to actively give them support. We need to challenge norms and we need to say, look, I'm open to you. You can speak with me. You can come to me. I am someone you can trust. You can be vulnerable with. And when we as a community come together and we support these people, we've seen it have actual benefits. Some studies even quantify that when communities support people, cases of depression fell over 300,000 over a study of millions of people. 300,000 people less with diseases just because we spent 5 more minutes in our day being active participants. I think 5 minutes is something we all can spend on an issue this big. Let's be active participants in society. Let's help people instead of ignoring them and hurting them even more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhruv, for sharing. Next up, we have Meda.
Hello, my name is Meda Sankara and I go to Saratoga High School, and my speech is about coping mechanisms for academic stress. Math has never been my strong suit. Numbers blare, symbols snarl, and no matter how long I've spent revising, writing formulas in pencil, circling mistakes in red, and erasing until the paper thins, nothing has ever really struck. My confidence shrinks by the minute as I chase answers that always seem out of reach. Not because I don't try, not because I don't care, but because sometimes school demands a kind of critical thinking that not everyone's brain is wired for, and we are rarely given permission to say that out loud. Years in tutoring centers like Kumon and the Russian School of Math didn't make me better at math. They made me anxious. They left me with a constant voice in my head telling me to work towards my full potential, as if I wasn't already breaking my brain just to scrap together subpar grades. And then high school arrived, and suddenly those grades weren't just grades. They were futures, they were college applications, and they were worth. And yet, the most meaningful math grade I've ever received wasn't a redemption arc. It was a 56% on my calculus test. When I saw that number pop up on Canvas, my life flashed before my eyes. My head spun. I buried my face into my chest and prayed my teacher had entered it in wrong. I mean, I'd studied for days, I'd rated homework problems, I'd went to tutorials, I'd looked through old quizzes and tests trying to find a mistake, but there it was. And that grade, it felt like a confirmation that all my effort was performative and that no matter how hard I worked, I would never be enough, that I wouldn't get into college and that I couldn't make my parents proud. However, around that time, I found myself thinking about a book that I had once dismissed, All the Right Places by Jennifer Nevon. When I first read it, it didn't move me. I thought it was dramatic, something I could analyze, rate 3 stars, and move on from. But after that test, I realized the problem hadn't been the book. It had been my distance from what it was trying to say. The story talks about finding small moments, bright places that make life feel survivable, even when everything feels heavy. And what unsettled me the most wasn't the plot, it was how much I understood the exhaustion, the urge to disappear, and the desire for the noise to stop. But the book also reminded me of something else. I had bright places too. Late night drives with friends, racing to fast food places, and laughing so hard our stomachs hurt, and talking about everything and nothing at once. Those moments didn't erase my stress, but they reminded me that I was more than it. And that's what coping really is. It isn't fixing the problem overnight, it isn't suddenly loving school, it isn't perfect grades or perfect mental health. And that realization didn't make math easier, but it helped me sit with the darkness without letting it consume me. And that matters more than any number ever could. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mela, for your presentation. Next up, we have Nidhi.
Hi everybody, my name is Nidhi Sujin and I'm a sophomore at Evergreen Valley High School. And today I'm going to be talking about breakups. Breakups hurt. That's expected. What isn't expected or okay is feeling like your whole world is falling apart afterward. In high school, breakups don't just happen quietly. They happen in hallways, on group chats, and on social media. Suddenly, you're dealing with rumors, blocked accounts, screenshots, and people asking you questions that you don't want to answer. It's not just heartbreak. It's stress, anxiety, and sometimes even shame. After a breakup, a lot of teens feel alone. They may replay conversations over and over and wonder if it was their fault, or feel scared to fully cut ties even when they know they should. It's not just It's not just stress, it's, my bad. Even when they know they should. It's not just a heartbreak, it always ends up being a problem on their mental health. We talk a lot about relationships, but almost never how to end them in a healthy way. No one tells us that it's okay to take space after a breakup, to set boundaries, or to ask for help. No one tells us that feeling sad is normal, but feeling unsafe or overwhelmed is a sign you need support. For some teens, breakups are harder because the relationship was never healthy to begin with. This can make the aftermath feel confusing, draining, or even frightening. And when that happens, it's easy to think that something is wrong with you, when really, you just weren't given the right tools. Breakups will always hurt, but it shouldn't destroy your sense of self, your friendships, or your mental health. We need to start talking more openly about what support looks like after a breakup, how schools can help, how friends can support, and how teens can protect their own emotional wellness. Because every young person deserves a relationship that ends with safety and respect, not fear or silence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, for sharing. So we'll move on to the next speaker, which is Rohan.
Hi, my name is Rohan Shah. I'm an 11th grader at Bellarmine College Prep, and the topic of my speech is on coping and asking for help. When I was 11 years old, my grandfather suffered a heart attack. I had to watch in fear as he collapsed in front of my eyes, and my dad did chest compressions on him. This moment deeply scarred me, and often I was stuck in this cycle of replaying the same scenario repeatedly in my head. There would be times when I didn't want to eat, and just sat in the suffering, not knowing if I would ever feel at peace. I didn't know who to ask for help or how to cope. And while my story is a very extreme circumstance, I fear this is the same mindset that we see in our youth today. We often focus on the problem of mental health, like academic pressure and social media apps that cause it. But today, I want to focus on how to cope with our mental health issues, by first looking at the importance of a good support system. Second, how to build healthy habits. And third, seeking help when necessary. Having a good support system is essential to coping with mental health issues. The Quebec longitudinal study on child development found that young adults with social support systems experienced 47% less severe depression. When my grandfather was in the hospital, I didn't know who to ask for help. But every day, new members of my community came over to my house to comfort us, cook meals for us, and pray with us. If you're struggling and don't know who to turn to, try talking to a close friend at school who you can trust, or a family member. And second, building healthy habits. As teenagers, the unrestrained access we have to our screens and the heavy workload from school and activities can cause us to put our own self-care aside. But as Seattle Children's Hospital reports, small habits such as regular sleep and wake times, limited screen usage, and going outside for a little bit every day can create a world of difference to your mental health. Finally, seeking help. It's easy to feel like you have to go through what you're struggling with alone, especially in the most difficult of circumstances. But in our South Asian community, there can be a stigma around seeking help from a professional when you need it. It's time we change our perspective as a community and encourage others instead. Students, talk to your school counselor to help you overcome whatever it is you're struggling with. Parents, listen to your children when they tell you they want to seek help. When I couldn't shake the images of my grandfather's heart attack from my mind, I sought professional help, and doing so had a tremendous impact on my life. So don't be afraid to seek help when you need it. Remember, your community is here to support you.
Thank you so much, Rohan, for sharing. And next up, we have Rahul. Thank you so much, Rohan, for sharing. And next up, we have Rahul.
Let me just say, I could talk about this for 3 full days, but I've got to make do with 3 minutes. But hi, my name is Rahul Ray. I am a senior at Piedmont Hills High School, and what I'm going to talk about today, it isn't the product of hours upon hours of thorough research. What I'm going to talk about right now is stuff I've seen myself, stuff I've seen guys I know go through, and stuff I've lived through. Viral social media content is targeting impressionable young men and boys in their formative years, driving them towards toxic masculinity, misogyny, and unhealthy body image. I've seen firsthand what this kind of content can do to young people you care about, people who never sat down with anyone to really have deep discussions about things like gender roles, body image, or even just their feelings. There's several different internet subcultures that compose this group, the most notable ones being red pillars, black pillars, and looks maxers. I know, pretty stupid names, but this stuff goes beyond your run-of-the-mill misogyny because the objectification here, it extends to not just women, but men themselves. And now the men are using arbitrary archetypes to obsessively classify people based on their appearances. It's this radicalization of thinking that adversely affects people's mental health. this self-loathing, this irrational feeling of something is objectively wrong with my face, it morphs into loathing of others. And you begin to constantly superficially judge people's looks using these unrealistic standards that people naturally can't attain, nor should they try to. These guys either misdiagnose a problem by blaming other people because they don't want to take accountability for their own social failures, or they invent an entirely new problem to address internal insecurities. When you're desperate to try to fix something that isn't even there, you're more than willing to degrade and objectify yourself. And when you objectify yourself, you find it natural to objectify others. And then instead of fixing your failing social life or crumbling mental health, you continue to let it crash and burn. When you're stuck in a hole, you need a rope, but these men are manipulated into taking shovels instead. You just go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole of self-isolation and obsession. Young men need to find better role models, whether they be family, friends, mentors, celebrities, fictional characters. But the point is, you need to find a role model that tells you it's okay to be you. That's the important first step. The second step is to have an open mind. You need to throw out all these these previous notions you have about mental health and these stigmas about therapy, or what you think it means to be a man, or how people should live their life. An open mind allows you to process what your role model is telling you and gauge whether you should believe it or not, because there's no role model who's worth believing wholeheartedly. And I think the last step is vulnerability. It's the hardest step, but I found that the strongest, most healthy male friend groups are the ones where guys are comfortable talking honestly about their feelings with each other and opening up. Support systems like these are excellent for mental health, and they remind you it's okay to have emotions and that you're no less of a man for being vulnerable or unstoic. There is no real social standard for being a man. Being an alpha male or having wolf eyes or dominating women or whatever it is, these are all just arbitrary archetypes that don't mean anything. You live your life the way you want to live it, instead of bending your mental health to the whims of superficial people who don't know you and don't care about you. Be firm in who you are and what you believe in and the way you lived your life. There's nothing more manly than that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for sharing your thoughts. Let's please give a whole round of applause to all of the youth for speaking up today.